Welcome back to Leadership Synergized. I'm Kevin Smith, your host. This is where we talk to individuals who are out in the world making a difference in a very positive way from many walks and industries around our society and life. This week, as last week, our guest is Mr. Steve Quaderer, Assistant Superintendent at Mississinawa School Corporation, located in the northern part of the state of Indiana, Gas City. Mr. Quaderer, God bless you, sir. Thank you for coming back again.
Thank you for having me.
Last week, you talked a bit about what led you into education, provided some background in your college experience in that aspect, and you recently been promoted to assistant superintendent. You've been in your role for a number of years. Talk a little bit and share your duties and what some of the challenges are that you oversee there.
I'm very blessed in the role that I have to do. My umbrella takes on things that I absolutely love: transportation and maintenance, buildings and grounds, technology, athletics. Those are the things that I really oversee, things that are really in my wheelhouse, things that I really enjoy working with our department heads and working with our directors, identifying issues as proactive as possible. When it comes to maintenance and buildings and grounds, that's a nonstop 24/7, 365 job, but it's rewarding. Certainly keeping up on appearances when it comes to the buildings and the way things look, but then also making sure that the buildings are running efficiently and appropriately behind the scenes. When it's warm out, it's cool inside. When it's cool out, it's warm inside, and making sure that everything, we are doing our very best to protect the learning environment for our students and staff. When it comes to technology, our corporation has been on the cutting edge because of outstanding leadership at the top for a long time. We've really been at the leading edge of technology when it comes to not just the actual device, but the infrastructure. We really slow played the implementation of the one-to-one when it comes to the device. We let our teachers a long time ago kind of practice with various one-to-one devices and really pared down what we felt like our teachers wanted to use. While doing that, we were building up our infrastructure. And then once we decided this is the device we're going to go with, our infrastructure was ready to go. We were able to roll the device, infrastructure was set, and we have never looked back. We went with Apple products, and we have had an outstanding relationship with Apple. It's almost 15 years now. Our technology department is outstanding. Steve Jeffries is our director. Brian Warninger, Bill Ray is his team, and they just do a great job working alongside our principals to bolster the technology implementation in our buildings. Just top notch. And then athletics. We have a new athletic director at the high school. Rich Benjamin comes to us from the NAIA college level. He's done an outstanding job year one, just learning public education. It's a big learning curve for him, but he has done a really good job developing systems and implementing systems here at Mississinawa to just take us to the next level when it comes to excellence, not only on the field, but off the field with our student athletes and our coaches. And mentoring our middle school athletic director, Jacob May, who's young, who is energetic, and who's excited to learn, but who definitely comes to us, again, outside of education, but has an opportunity or is willing to learn and has an opportunity for growth when it comes to working with Rich. So those areas are areas that I'm really excited to work in. So Leslie has blessed me, and the school board has provided me the opportunity to work in those areas that I'm very passionate about.
I'm sure part of the building and grounds excitement has to come from your baseball days, right? Having coached baseball and watched my sons play throughout their careers, part of the great aspect, and so people will think I'm probably stretching it here, I enjoyed most just working on the field, the mowing, the raking of the dirt, getting it ready for game and afterwards or for practice, and that carries over into life.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot to be said when it comes to especially baseball. That's one of the things, and I was a baseball coach here for 3 years at Mississinawa, and that's one of the things that we really stressed to our team. It was less about manicuring the field as it was about, like you said, paying attention to detail, striving for excellence, and then being able to step back and looking at your work and seeing an outstanding product that you're able to leave and then come back to the next day and benefit from when it comes to a gorgeous baseball field. In this case, our baseball coach and Rich Benjamin and our baseball team do a phenomenal job with their baseball field. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't have it any other way. So
with that.
to your point, yes, there's a lot to be said about the care of facilities when it comes to paying attention to detail.
And I would also imagine that you would agree with this. A lot of schools, in particular, those smaller rural areas where funds are much more restricted than perhaps in the city areas, they're working and teaching in buildings that may have been built in the 1960s or 1950s today in many aspects. So care is.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we've done a phenomenal job here at Mrs. Our high school was built in the mid 70s, and you go through and you can see the 70s style, but it is in phenomenal shape. Ted Gosser, our director of buildings and grounds, and maintenance, has done a phenomenal job, and his team, our custodians, have done a phenomenal job of just taking care of our buildings and maintaining what we have. We are not in a position where we can build a new high school, so we have to maintain to the very best of our ability what we have. Our middle school used to be the high school, and that was built in 1950. So that is the building that you're referring to. Now that building is built like a tank, but it also looks like a tank. It's not very pretty. But our team and our community has done a phenomenal job of kind of rallying around that building and doing the very best to keep it maintained and keep it functioning to the very best of our ability for our students. And I really commend Ted Gosser, Jared Lucky, and their team of custodians of really keeping those buildings in great shape.
Thank you for saying so. Whether I was coaching as a lay coach or teaching in the classroom and coaching as well, as a building administrator, district administrator, every custodial maintenance individual I had poured their heart and soul that I had the opportunity to work with, poured their heart and soul. And I want to commend, to your point, everyone in that focus on care of facilities, because sometimes it's overlooked in regards to the value it brings in providing that safe and secure environment for our children to learn in. And really those technological aspects you talked about, Ms. Sinawal does so well, they don't really get as far if that group isn't doing what they need to do within the facility. So we salute everyone across our country and the world that does that work in our schools today. They're very much deserving of all the appreciation we can give them. Mr. Quaderer, shifting gears, you talked about your baseball coach at Manchester and your connections there. Who else has played a big part in your role of becoming a leader today, the leader you are?
Yeah, I think that this is where I really would talk about Leslie. I've worked alongside Leslie Winter now for 18 years. She was instrumental in hiring me as a 25-year-old administrator and really has mentored me all along the way, has really shown me the ropes when it comes to leadership. She has mentored me what it means to be a public school servant, but also a community leader. She has mentored what it looks like to serve in the community and be visible in the community. But also, she's also taught me to balance my role here in the schools with my role in my family, and to strike a better balance than maybe she did, and to learn from her mistakes. And she would be the first to tell you. And I think that's one of the things that she may be most proud of, the work that I've done, is finding that balance of the work that I do with the balance of my family. Because I work hard, but I also work hard as a husband and a father. And I've been able to find that work-life balance. And Leslie's just been phenomenal. She's always somebody that I can rely on. And when it's a call or a text, she's always somebody that, if it's obviously school related, I can bounce an idea or a thought off of her. She's always been there for me in tough times personally. She's really just somebody and I will continue to rely on her even after she steps into retirement here after July 1, as a mentor and as a friend. There's a lot of things that she has taught me to do and to do well. And there's things that she would say, don't do these things the way I did them. And I think that to me is the biggest demonstration of leadership of, these are the way I did these things this way, don't do them this way. And that to me is an outstanding model of, this because I did it this way doesn't mean it's necessarily right. So for her to be able to reflect and identify those things is very impressive. And she's been instrumental for me in my career and the careers of our current administrators, and she will be missed. She's not going far. She's actually my backdoor neighbor. She lives right behind me, but I know she'll spend a lot of time in Denver, where her son lives. And I certainly wish her all the best, and she will be missed. But she's just a phone call or a text away. But she has been instrumental in my career here as an administrator at Mississinawa Community Schools and as a community member here in Gas City, Mill Township in Grant County.
Thank you for sharing. Very high regards. I know in speaking to Ms. Winter before we sat down for our 2 weeks of discussion, she spoke very highly of the compassion, the care, and the focus and commitment you have and bring to excellence as well. And for lack of a better term, perhaps just the leveled approach. And sometimes in education, having experienced it myself in the public school sector in particular, that leveled approach, that leveled view, that ability to stay off of the teeter totter, it can be very difficult because a lot of things are coming at the leader from a number of different angles. Talk a little bit about that from what you've seen over the past 15 or 20 years.
I think that really to me is one of my strengths. And some people sometimes see it as a weakness because I'm not an alarmist. I don't overreact. And some people see that almost as an underreaction sometimes, where there's a lack of reaction, or they may see it as a lack of reaction. I'm constantly processing, but I feel like I need to remain cool, calm, and collected so I can think in that immediate crisis, whatever it may be. Maybe it's we had our elementary students, our fifth graders, were going to the Shrine Circus in Fort Wayne, and we had a bus crash. So for me to fly off the handle and be mad at the bus, and it was our bus crashed into another one of our buses. So it was Mississinawa on Mississinawa. There was no other blame. There was nobody else involved. It was just us. So for me to fly off the handle and rant and rave and be mad at the bus drivers or be mad at the transportation director, that doesn't solve any of the problems. But to work through and be empathetic and to start processing, how do we keep the kids safe? What do we do? What's the logistical plan of getting the kids off the interstate? And then to start processing what happened. How do we make sure that this doesn't happen again? And then obviously work through the reporting aspect with the Indiana State Police, Department of Transportation, all those things. Those all have to happen in real time. So if my emotions are out of whack, I can't do the job that I've been hired to do. It's important that I keep those things in check. And the opposite's true as well. If I get that phone call and then I just hide underneath my desk and pretend that I'm not responsible for that, I'm not going to be in this position very much longer either. So I think it's important to be able to remain calm and then maybe have my meltdown after the fact when I close my office door and I can vent to Leslie, or I go home and vent to my wife, or call out one of my buddies and vent to him. But in that moment of crisis, in this case, you just can't overreact, but because you need to react. So that's just one example, I think.
A great example. And what I heard there, for anyone who's been around the game of baseball, that ability to me grew out of stepping to the plate with a tying run on third, bottom of the final inning, winning run on second, getting down 0-2 and having to battle your way there. Whether you were successful or not, when I say you, anyone in that situation, it's that pressure point that we understand doesn't have to be negative. It's an opportunity to grow through. And I heard you explain that very well.
Yeah, and I think getting down 0-2, and I'll take it even one step further, getting down 0-2 and both strikes were called strikes in the dirt. So it wasn't like swings and misses. These are things that totally out of your control that you still got one more shot, and you still have to keep your composure. You can't just turn around and yell at the umpire. You still have to react. So I think, to your point, I think that baseball, as I continue to mature, as I continue to look back on my time, and certainly my boys are still involved, baseball has certainly, in athletics, but baseball has certainly continues to find its way, weaving itself into my life.
I love that analogy. I almost used the two curveballs in the dirt, so I'm glad you picked that up. In that
Yeah.
I couldn't hit it. I couldn't hit the ball on the tee in practice, let alone the curveball. So good for you, Mr. Quaderer. You're obviously an individual who loves to learn new things. Talk a bit about what's next for you in your growth and development.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot on the horizon as we transition to a new superintendent. I think that our new superintendent, there's an awesome opportunity for him to come in and for he and I to work together to go to the next level in our corporation as far as auditing what we're doing. Are we doing what we're saying we're doing? Are we doing it everywhere? And are we doing it with excellence? And I think that really for me is to really look at the things that I'm doing in my specific role as an assistant superintendent, as a colleague, as a mentor, as a community member, as a husband, as a father. Am I doing those things with excellence? Those are the things that's important to me. We have an opportunity with the new superintendent coming in for he and I to work together to really evaluate the work that has been done here at Mississinawa Community Schools, and certainly not change things, but audit things. Are we doing what we're saying we're doing? Are we doing it everywhere? And are we doing it with excellence? And those are the things that I'm really focusing on for me in the future. On my role as assistant superintendent, my role as a colleague, my role as a mentor to our administrators, my role as a husband, my role as a father, my role as a community member. Am I doing those roles with excellence? That's what's really truly for me next, fine-tuning the things that I'm doing each and every day and doing those things with excellence. It's going to be different not having Leslie here at the helm. Her and I have worked side by side for 18 years. She's going to be just a phone call or a text away, but it will be different not having her right next door, but working alongside a new superintendent, showing him the ropes, but then also working through kind of his vision for our corporation and auditing the things that we're doing and really taking the things that we're doing to the next level with excellence is really where my mindset is for the next year to 2 years for now.
Mr. Quaderer, as we begin to wrap up our 2 weeks together, listening to your response just a second ago brings me back to a question. With the years of experience you've had in leadership, in education, is it harder for someone to truly live out the servant leadership part in the field of education today than it once was? Is it the same when it comes to the challenges to do, or is it easier today?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that the biggest thing that I've noticed is the target is moving, and the target is moving maybe faster than it ever has. I think that the mandates, whether they're federal mandates or state mandates, are changing the way we look at the expectations of a high school graduate and how we not only chart up to how we track or how we get a high schooler graduated, but how we track them beyond high school, the things that we educate middle schoolers about high school in preparation for high school, the things that elementary students need to know before they even get into middle school, and the expectations we have of primary students. The old adage that preschool is really the new kindergarten is really even, I think that may be even underestimated. But when it comes to leadership, understanding that you're still serving people, you're still serving students. One of the questions, what are you teaching biology? No, you're not teaching biology, you're teaching students. So in some ways, I feel like we have all this knowledge, we have all this information, but we're still teaching students, regardless of the subject, regardless of the level. We're still building relationships with students, whatever you're teaching, whatever level, pre-K through graduate work, postgraduate work. You're building relationships, you're imparting information, you're imparting knowledge. So sometimes I think it's easier because we understand the importance of that. And then other times I think that we get lost in the importance of, man, I got to cover this material, or we got to get through, through 20 chapters in 18 weeks. And how am I going to do this? And we get enamored in covering the material instead of teaching the student. So I think, again, I know I'm going back and forth and I'm really not giving a very good answer. I think you are. I think to answer your question, the answer is yes. Yes, I think it's easier. I think if we focus on building relationships, I think that we can have a servant's heart. I think that we can really truly lead as servant leaders. And I think if we, regardless of the age, preschool through postgraduate, if you build a relationship and you cultivate that relationship and that relationship is genuine, those students, regardless of their age, will run through a brick wall for you. But if you are truly just covering material, if you are just processing information and asking them to regurgitate it back to you, you're not providing servant leadership. You are just you're not even teaching at that point. And that's hard. That's not servant leadership. So if that's your lens, that's hard. For me, it has gotten easier because I've really listened to and plugged in and become more aware of my mentors and less aware of myself as far as I don't have it all. I don't have all the answers. I don't have it all figured out. The older I get, the wiser I get that I'm not as wise as I think I am, that other people have better clues to this, and being able to reflect on, man, I didn't handle that great, or man, I handled that well, and here's why. Or being able to pick up the phone and call a trusted friend or a colleague or mentor and say, here's what I got. What do you think? I wouldn't have done that 10, 15 years ago. For me, servant leadership has gotten easier, but I've also bought into the idea that it's not about me. It truly is about a team. And I have a phenomenal team around me, not just here at Mississinawa, but around the state and around the country, people that I can rely on and lean on in any situation, personal or professional. So again, I don't know if I answered your question. I guess that's where I'm at. That's where I'm landing.
I think you landed very well, and so many things as we wrap up here, Mr. Quaderer, that you brought home through our 2 weeks together. First of all, the importance of being self-aware, and that self-awareness needs to be viewed and reflected on in every moment we have that opportunity. It's not a one-time deal. It's every moment. We have to know who we are to become before we can ever become comfortable in our own skin. And I see you as an individual who's very comfortable with your place in life. I also hear two things in regards to serving in education today. The first is we've got to be wise enough through that self-awareness to get out of our own way. And the second is open the heart and love. And if we don't love, we won't make those relationships where they really can benefit the child, not benefit us, benefit the student that we're teaching. I take all of that away. And you said it very well, my friend, and I appreciate you saying so. Two other things I need to get out of you before we close this out. One piece of advice you would give someone just entering educational leadership coming up in the coming school year that you've taken away.
So one of the things that I've tried to impart when I was principal, that I imparted upon the teachers when it comes to relationships with their kids, and now I've shifted those gears from my role to the principals to really share with their teachers and then to the students, is that, and I stole this from my pastor, Steve Quaderer at College Wesleyan Church, is the idea of a shepherd. And we are shepherding. As a shepherd, and we're leaders. Just like shepherds lead their flock, we lead our flock of, in this case for me, my flock of administrators or my flock of teachers. The teachers, their flock of students. So you got to know your kids. You got to know their names. You got to know their stories. You got to strive to make those connections daily, weekly, if not daily. You got to feed your flock. You got to provide current and relevant learning materials. Give them energy, give them enthusiasm. You got to lead, provide firm, fair, consistent classroom environment where you are in charge, but serve as a positive example with your behavior and your reinforcement. And then you got to protect your flock. You got to protect by providing a learning environment that allows all students to participate, addresses poor student choices in a respectful manner that does not increase the conflict. Know, feed, lead, protect is really something that I've worked to impart on with our principals to teachers, and then to teachers knowing, feeding, leading, protecting their students. And that's really something I've really tried to build on in my role here as assistant superintendent.
Thank you. Mr. Quaderer, how does someone reach out if they want to learn more about you or gain more of your advice or just talk a bit and gain some of your knowledge? Where do they find you at?
Yeah, you can go to our Mississinawa website, olemiss.k12.in.us. I'm also on Twitter. That's S Quaderer, SQUADER, the @S Quaderer on Twitter. And I look forward to also on LinkedIn, also S Quaderer. But I appreciate this opportunity. Again, I've heard nothing but great things from you, Dr. Smith, Kevin, and Leslie sings your praises. And I look forward to an outstanding relationship and partnership with you in the future.
The feeling is mutual, my friend. Leslie has spoken very highly of you, and God bless you. I appreciate all you do And what a great example of the leadership and mentoring of Ms. Leslie Winter, who is wrapping up her public school career as superintendent at Mrs. School Corporation, that you see here in Stephen Quaderer. What great leadership model you are, Mr. Quaderer, and never take that for granted, anyone in that regard. If you ever want to grow and gain knowledge, and we never do this alone. I've been there, I've made the mistakes, and I've fooled myself a bit to say, I got this. I got it only if God has the other people in my life right alongside me and actually out in front of me. And I know Mr. Quaderer would agree with that. Mr. Quaderer, I love you as a child of God. I appreciate all you do in education. Thank you for serving his youngest children as you do, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed our time together with Stephen Quaderer, the Assistant Superintendent at Mrs. School Corporation, these past 2 weeks. Remember, life isn't in a rush. Leadership certainly doesn't have to be rushed. It's about being still, it's about focus, and it's about moving forward in a positive way, but consistently moving forward. Thank you for your time. We love you. God bless.